Welcome back, crew. It's September, and that means we are diving into a brand new tabletop RPG of the month. This one's a bit of a special one. This is our very first Patreon chosen game. And shout outs to the crew because they chose The Old Gods of Appalachia by Shanna Germain and Monte Games. And that's what a game we're going to be diving into throughout the month of September. One of our first impressions today, showing you how to build characters in the world, core mechanics of the system, and as always, something unique about the TTRPG just to show off what it's about. But as always, we're going to be doing a live actual play of the Old God system Thursday, September 28th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, where we're going to be going through and putting the system through its paces and showing you what types of adventures you can run with the Old Gods of Appalachia. But this time we got a little bit of a treat. And I want to give a special shout out to Shauna Germain and her team for making this possible. But we're going to be giving away a free copy of the Old God system. Now, typically we just give away a PDF. Thanks to Shauna, we're going to be able to give away a PDF and a hardcover of the Old God system. So you'll have this amazing book on your shelf and at your table with you and your crew. One slight restriction, it's only going to be available for US participants, but still an amazing book that you'll be able to get and be able to kind of get your own Old Gods of Appalachia adventures on. So let's dive into it. So first impressions of the system. This one, our first impression of the systems, I got to see it at Gen Con. I didn't get to play it, but I think they probably had the best like promotional piece at Gen Con. One of the pieces of Old God is this eldritch horror type game set in an alternate universe, Appalachia, with kind of some of the same history going on though. But it's all about kind of hollow men and haunts and ain'ts and people diving into areas where mortals shouldn't tread, either going into the deep forest where tricksters lie, or diving deep into the earth where horrors have laid for eons. And one of the cool things they had in it is miners are usually at the Appalachian layer. They're just prevalent in the system and the podcast. They come up pretty often. They had this really cool undead miner handing out coupons and kind of this really cool makeup and costume design. I thought that was probably one of the most unique things I saw with Gen Con. So definitely kind of a cool piece to hype up on this game. But definitely check that out and check out the podcast too. This is probably one of my favorite podcasts. My wife and I watch it pretty much anytime we travel somewhere. We're caught up, and for anybody that's a fan of it, they just started the newest season too. So they got some new episodes out after a little bit of a break there. But yeah, it's all about that eldritch horror and just kind of with grannies with mystical powers and kind of some of the family traditions and just kind of poor miners caught in situations above their ken. And I think it's a really unique world, and I think it's one that fits really well with tabletop RPGs. So I'm really excited to see more of how the system plays and how it operates. A little bit about the system. It's based off the Cypher System by Monte Games. This is my first time checking out the Cypher System, so I'm pretty kind of stoked on that as well. From what I've seen so far, it's a D20 system, so I always love D20s, so kind of cool to see that. You also have D6s and D100s you roll, but the D20 is going to be the primary, kind of the primary die in your kit for this one. And the way they do that is they have different target numbers that you have to hit due to the difficulty. This is a little bit different than some other games too. You got to do a little bit of math here. But the way they have is their difficulty numbers are between 1 through 10. And to get your target number from that, you times that number by 3. So if you had a target number or a difficulty of 3, you'd have a target number of 9. So they kind of a unique way to do it. And your skills and being like trained or specialized can bring that target number down or the difficulty down, bringing the target number down, which would be interesting to kind of see how that plays out. Items and things like that can also help and lower that difficulty for you too. So with that too, one of the big things with this one, I think it's kind of cool to go over first impressions. It's another system where the player always rolls. So the game master typically won't be rolling dice. It's always going to be kind of player driven, similar to Mask and some of the other PBTA style systems. But this is going to be always in the player's hands. So if they're almost getting run down by a horror, they'll be the ones rolling, and they'll kind of determine good or bad what happens there. But there's a cool mechanic I haven't had a chance to dive into completely yet, but we'll go over this in the mechanics video called GM intrusions, where it seems like the GM can kind of flex some of their narrative control to put their players in a tense situation. So more to come on that. Keep an eye out for the mechanics video too. But overall, one of the biggest things I want to say about the game is it has a lot of resources for running in the Appalachia areas. They've got different chapters for going over each of like the core states, like Kentucky, West Virginia. They've got different things for kind of how to set up the game. A lot of cool maps and things so you can run with it too. I think it did a really good job of helping you kind of set the stage and kind of even if you haven't watched the podcast, get a feel for what the world is like and kind of how to bring that to your players. And that's what our unique video is going to be. We're going to go into how this system works and kind of how the cool resources they provide and kind of how to set up your own Old Gods of Appalachia game. So you have some cool resources on that side too. Kind of along with that too, they've got a lot of cool art. Like this is probably the coolest cover I've got in my collection. I really like the feel for it. This is a cool character in the podcast, but it definitely kind of sets the tone, real folksy eldritch horror feel to it. And the art as a whole is definitely good. Definitely has a unique feel that I think aligns pretty well with the podcast too. So major shout outs to them on that side. And yeah, it's definitely kind of well organized and designed from what I've seen so far. But we still need to take our deep dives. You always know that I always like to build my character as like the first real kind of foray into the system and just kind of see how everything flows from there. So come through this weekend to see how that goes. But yeah, one of the other big things I wanted to say too is it gives you a lot of like cool resources, even outside of like setting the tone and the stage. There's two adventures in the core rulebook, which is kind of a really, I think, a unique thing there too. Two different adventures that you could run for your crew, one for newcomers and one for a little bit more experienced players. So I think that's a great value. Most systems I see either don't have an adventure or just have one short one. Getting two is a really cool way to get players in and have some of those resources right at hand with just one core rulebook purchase. Going along with that too, they also have a cool bestiary in there, so we got to go through some of that too as we get prepared for our one shot with the crew. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty stoked for this one. I love the podcast. I'm going to throw a link for that in the description. It just has a real unique feel. It's like kind of the storyteller, the narrator for the podcast too, just really kind of brings you into it. So I hope I'm going to live up to a little fraction of that as we go through with my crew. Initially, I was hoping to bring in a guest GM with a West Virginia accent, but unfortunately, real life timing kind of prohibited that. But we'll still have some fun with it. You have to put up with my accent going through it. But yeah, definitely looking forward to this system. For those who have played it before, shout out in the comments some unique pieces. And one of the cool things we're going to be doing with this, we're going to have our third Meet the Maker with Shanna Germain, the creator of this system. So definitely throw in some comments and throw some questions in the comments for her as well. She's been super open and helpful with this, especially with the giveaways. So major shout outs to Shanna, and I'm definitely looking forward to being able to meet with her. But yeah, so keep an eye out. June or September 28th is where our live actual play will be there. Link in the description. Make sure to click notify me so you can come through and get to hang out with me and the crew. You get your chance to win. But like, subscribe, and stay tuned for our September month of Old Gods of Appalachia. Till next time, crew.